welcome to AI Revolution Digest, where businesses get smarter. I'm Jesslyn, and I'm going to show you how AI drives real results. And because the future is awaiting, let's dive right in. What is the future of work? We often ask these questions to people in the world of HR, but in a world of AI where we already have agents that can help us to be more productive, how does this actually work in practice? So to answer this question, let's welcome our very special guest for today, Sir Nithish Rajan. Sir, thank you for being here. Can you tell our listeners who are you and what is it that you do?
It's excellent. Thanks for having me. So, just a quick background about myself. I've been in AI, enterprise AI specifically, just for the last 3, 4 months, but I've spent more than a decade in enterprise SaaS. So, I've been through the journey of mobile device management that changed how enterprises look at employees and how they engage at work. I spent a few years at Stripe looking at kind of fintech and the payments landscape, and more recently joined back with some of the founders of a startup that I joined previously to help simplify AI for enterprises.
Thank you, sir. So you said that we're going to help enterprises simplify AI. So what does it mean exactly? And we said enterprise SaaS. What's that?
Yeah. So when you think of software adoption in large companies, there are some key things that help enable that, right? So the software space is typically in the combination of a business to consumer or a business to business type transaction. And both are very different in how you approach it. The likes of a Grab or Uber that's aimed at consumers, they would put in a lot of incentives and try to get people to use the app more before they start charging you. Whereas in an enterprise space, it all comes down to, are you actually solving the enterprise challenge for the company? And then they're usually willing to pay a higher cost to purchase the software as long as they're able to deliver value for them. So that's one differentiation that I think is key. And in the AI space, we're seeing that same challenges. The likes of the chat GPT, the public facing apps are being adopted much faster than any other application that we've seen historically, much faster than the likes of Instagram and Facebook. But the enterprise side is still not catching up to that same level of adoption. And it comes down to the complexities as well as the specialization that exists within enterprise. And solving that is going to be a combination of building the right security layer, the right integrations, and the right AI tools so that enterprises are able to utilize and get the right value from AI models.
Thank you, sir. So what I understand is a lot of companies are not comfortable with their employees using ChatGPT because they're worried about the security aspect, just like what you said, that, oh, what if I put something in ChatGPT, it's going to be part of the public domain. Perhaps I don't want my competitors to know where, for example, I don't want them to know who my number one suppliers are or where would I next buy my factory. So my question would be, where does Arya fit into that? Do you fit the gap of, or how does it work? Because what I understand is you combine all these models like ChatGPT and Gemini.
That's right.
I
That's
was
right.
a company and I'll say, oh, I have this product that uses these machines. My question would now be, how how is it secure? Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's exactly where Aria is built on as a foundational thing to solve. So what we do is we allow companies to utilize any AI models, bring any internet data systems that they may have as knowledge for the AI, and then deploy them in specific use cases that apply to the employee. So one of the most simplest use cases that most people get started with is a enterprise ChatGPT or an enterprise Claude. And what we do is we help allow policies, application of policies either at the input or output level as well. So we can evaluate, what is going into the model, what's coming out, build that observability, as well as apply and block audit those transactions. So at minimum, kind of removing the shadow AI is the P0 that we help enable. Now, as you go from there, we've built a RAG system or retrieval augmentation generation. And what that system does for you is actually take the context of the question and provides only that information as mathematical embeddings for the AI model to actually understand the content and give you an answer. So we're able to make sure that, even if the model is not trained specifically on your company data, you you give it the exact information that we need to answer the question, and based on that input, it is then able to give you the right output. Um, and all of this is monitored. There's observability, there's traceability. So if you want to go back and say, okay, 3 months ago, what did my model response give me for this query? You can pull up that data. So if your company does need to prove or is audited, you have that track record and observability of what went into the model and what came out of those models as well.
Thank you. So I guess what your point was, okay, ChatGPT, every time you put in your documents, you always need to prompt it what to do next, right? And it just like my ChatGPT cannot communicate with your ChatGPT. So what Aria actually does is it connects those two so that you don't always have to do the boring stuff. It's more of like an agent that can help you be more productive. I guess that's what Aria is really good at. So you
That's
still,
exactly. Yes, precisely. And that's the third pillar of agentic AI that we're seeing in the market today, where we want to build agent to agent communications while also having the observability as to what agent A has passed on to agent B. And then you've got the world of reasoning models as well as planning agents. So again, these are groups of agents that you want to be able to deploy, similar to how an enterprise would deploy a team of new hires, for example, to solve a specific problem. And then they're able to work with each other, and you're able to give them the company context in a secure way so that they're able to utilize it and get to the right outcome as well. And the third piece of agentic AI is having access to real-time data. So one piece that you can't do with ChatGPT today is being able to connect it into your internal systems. So your systems of record, whether that's a CRM system or a database, allowing controlled access to these backend systems, while again maintaining the role-based access controls and security. That's the differentiation and how Airia is approaching this, and what we think will unlock true value for the enterprise.
yeah. So for example, if I were to use Aria, I don't need to keep going back and forth to my Microsoft tab or to my Google Drive to know how it works, right? Like I just input those directly. So it's like a little agent. It's gonna help you do the boring stuff. Now my question now is, you said that you're always interested in tech. You've been doing AI, I don't know, ever since your career started. You're in fintech, and now you're joining a startup. So our question is, what's one metric you wish you could untrain from every enterprise AI dashboard?
Yeah, and this one may be a little bit controversial, but I think accuracy metrics without the context. So what you see in some of these dashboards is hallucination percentage or accuracy percentage, and that actually doesn't capture the error distribution, the edge cases, the actual real world performance gap. So a 95% or a 99% fraud detection algorithm that you may use in a payment space, it may still miss critical fraud patterns or new fraud patterns that are going to come along. So having that definition of a single accuracy metric, I think, is not going to help a lot of enterprises. Instead, they need to be looking for metrics like cost of false negatives or decision alignment with business outcomes, meaning is the metric that I'm tracking actually connected to the true business outcome that I'd like to achieve? Those would be better metrics rather than just checking accuracy of an AI model.
Yeah, so that's very helpful because I believe that there's a lot of news that, oh, ChatGPT just released its latest model, is going to be way better, or now ChatGPT has a program called Deep Research where you can, people believe that if I were to use ChatGPT, I don't need to do research papers anymore, or it's going to replace all the researchers, and yet they're still in business. What you said was important, where there's no one metric of what is right, where every businesses would have their own KPIs, and it's up for them to decide what does productivity look like for us, for our business today. And I guess a lot of people, we often think that ChatGPT or any other agentic AI model can take as well as us, right? Because that's what we're often told. But we're not, one of the things we often forget is it's still us that still makes the decision. So my question now is, how do you help people detect alignments, especially in an AI system that seems so accurate, or AI is so good at, the term was overfitting. I often hear the word overfitting. Can you tell us more about what does that term mean and how do we mitigate against that?
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things with AI is there's definitely been top down push this year, especially coming from management to deploy AI into specific use cases, and a lot of times people see that as, oh, the management wants to replace the roles with AI, but the reality is where the market will be headed is there's going to be an evolution of roles. So if you think back to the case of sewing machines, they didn't replace tailors or fashion designers. They changed how factories work in making clothes and kind of increased the productivity of these factories that made clothes. But the profession of sewing and fashion design continues to stay today. So similarly, AI is going to be one of those tools that, yes, there may be some skills that will go out of need, but other skills will come in place. And so that's where I think the alignment and the detection strategies become important. As you were saying, uh, what we'll have is newer roles for humans in there, such as adversarial probing, which is how do you test these systems with contradictory goals and see how they perform. Or you'll have explainability reviews where someone has to go in and take some data set at random and then compare what a correct output should be and how the system got to that output. Because getting to a desired output but in the wrong path may also contribute to errors in the longer term. So again, in a manufacturing use case, that's someone going and picking an item off the factory line and verifying quality, right? So something similar would be a role that we'll see in the AI space as well. And then finally, I think we'll see an evolution of new goal monitoring or outcome monitoring. So things like secondary indicators in the system that are out of the normal operating parameters. So that will become its own role where someone's able to then go, okay, yes, the models may be giving the desired outcome, but is that taking a shortcut or using other systems that it should not be using, and being able to monitor that also becomes a new role that becomes there. So for successful enterprise AI adoption, I think having these alignment, whereas it's going to be a new world, it's going to be a new set of roles, but building that right alignment between the different teams and the skill sets will become important to help drive adoption.
Thank you. And I guess what the point that we made was, it's more important for everyone to know what does alignment mean, right? In the company. Oftentimes you go in an HR is gonna say, yes, this is what alignment means for all of us. Most
Mm-hmm.
of the times we think, okay, HR is boring, they're just paperwork, it's a waste of my time. But now what you're saying is, in the world of AI, where we tend to want to automate some tasks, the more it's important for everyone to know, how does my role align directly with the business strategy, so that when something goes wrong, I know how to oversight AI. Or just like what you said, what's necessarily efficient may not always get the right thing. Because what I understand is AI would know what's the best way to get your goal. But the question is it the most ethical? Or is it something that we must be doing? Or am I the right person to be doing this thing, right? So the control is still there, which
Mm-hmm.
is important. Just like what you said, I think with the world of AI, we often think that, oh, I'm not important anymore because some little robot is going to do it automatically. But you said specifically from the beginning that yes, it's going to do things automatically, but you get to decide what it's going to do. To who am I going to choose it, and what is the context of the data, so that whatever is going to turn out will be accurate, right? So we often talk about AI models, machine learning, the machine learns on its own. And I was talking to my dad, and he's like, well, you're going to talk with Sir Rajan tomorrow. Do you think AI or ChatGPT is making us dumb? I mean, we're becoming late. There's a perception that we're becoming more lazier, right? That instead of doing critical thinking, we just go to chat to do, or my dad would say, if I use ChatGPT too much, my brain would shrink. It's an expression we would use. But I want to know, before we start talking about machine learning, what does learning mean for you? Let's start with that.
Yeah, I think, and this is an interesting topic, and I think there's definitely more research to be done in this space. But as our tools have evolved, folks have changed kind of how they approach those tools. So, for example, I'm pretty sure most people today don't know how to use an abacus to do math, but they would know how to use a calculator, and they would know how to get the math job done. Similarly, especially with the newer generation, I'm saying ability to use maps, because now they have Google Maps with GPS. So if you give them a paper map, being able to navigate, that's a skill that's slowly dropping off. And so with ChatGPT, yes, I think the skills of what you do will change. And every generation has always seen newer tools come out as a threat to how humans function. But it really is an evolution of change from tool A to tool B. Whether that's good for humans as a whole, that's TBD. But if you look at the history, all tools, whether that's tools in farming, tools in industrial revolution, or tools to get us to space, have only helped progress humanity as a whole, rather than kind of take us backwards. So I'm of the glass half full view on this one, where I think AI is going to be that new tool that again helps increase what we can do and helps open up new landscapes. Sure, there will be some skills that will no longer become important and drop off, but I don't see that as a negative per se. Again, based on the historical aspects of how humans have used new and new tools, as we've discovered.
Thank you. So it's interesting you use the calculator as an example. Like I can imagine when the calculator was there, people were saying, "Oh, we won't use maths anymore," or "Kids won't be good at maths anymore," or mental maths because they have a calculator, and yet we're doing more difficult maths. Right? I remember when I was doing calculus, my dad will just look at it. I was like, "No, that's not my maths. That's your math." Because just what you said, that we have these tools that can aid us in learning.
Right.
It's not going to replace us. Just like a calculator, it can't think about these numbers out of nowhere. You still need to input the data, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you say ARIA does. Before
Right.
I give you an output, you need to tell me what input is most important for me to get a decision. So the skill set of critical thinking, of to decide what's the most important information, I would say is the new skill that we have. Because I remember before chat, we had Google, right? And when we do research, I'm pretty sure when you did research in your when you're still in your master's or undergrad, your skill set we're taught is how to search for the right information.
Right.
And it's never gonna go away, right? Because what we're having now is there's too much information out there.
Yeah, and so I remember clearly my first year of college, Wikipedia was not allowed as a valid source when you had to write documents. But by the time I graduated by our fourth year, it actually changed its university policy, and we could use Wikipedia.
Oh no!
It was a change because of the trust in the system. Because prior to that, the way you had to go and search for references was go to the school library and actually find books and then find the right section and then be able to code that in your paper. Whereas we were able to evolve the systems and allowing us to think of more complex things. Coming just back to the AI space, I think similarly AI excels at optimizing a lot of these small automatic tasks, but it's missing the long-term thinking that humans are still able to do. So when we're talking about learning and what we will focus on, I really think it is understanding and having that larger long-term vision, whether that's on a decision, as you were saying, being able to make ethical trade-offs. So whether you want to guide your business towards sustainability versus quarterly targets, for example, that's still going to be a human decision. AI will be able to suggest, say, if you want to hit your sustainability goals, do X, Y, Z, and if you want to do your quarterly targets, do ABC. But I think there's still a human element there to actually make that decision, go forward with it. Similarly, things around cultural nuance when it comes to global expansion. So I've spent my career working across US, India, UK, Australia, Japan, quite a few places. And there's so much cultural nuance that I don't think can be caught with an AI model today. If anything, you might have regional AI models that will bring their own set of nuances and opinions, but you'll still need a human to be able to navigate some of these decisions and priorities as well. Uh, And then the last one that comes to mind for me is where AI, I don't think, will be able to do something where humans will still have to learn rapidly, would be black swan events and preparedness for black swan events. So thinking back to COVID and reaction to kind of how the world reacted to COVID. In a world where AIs may be automating a bunch of these, I am not confident that it will be able to handle these like one-off exceptions and be able to give the right trade-offs. And so that again would be where humans would be able to go in and be able to spend more of their time to get work done. So the original point of the abacus and so forth, I feel like taking the rote work out, thanks to AI and that being able to do the automated work, that just gives us more space to spend more time on complex tasks or tasks that would need more strategic thinking rather than just a deterministic or probabilistic thinking that AI does.
Thank you for that. What I found interesting is you said that AI is not good at knowing the cultural nuances. And that's why we're saying that some countries are creating their own AI, right? So can you tell us more on what this cultural nuance mean and AI, like what does it do day to day? So I can imagine that you said you've been working at enterprises that are global. So they have teams that's in America, you have teams in India. I can imagine the way people communicate or the way they do work is different. So the way an Indian would give feedback is more, let's say, indirect compared to an American where they're more. So if these two agents were to talk to each other and give feedback, let's say an American boss would give feedback to an Indian subordinate, and AI is part of that process. How does culture fit into that?
Yeah, and that is going to be a very, very interesting challenge. If you see even the AI world today of multi-agentic flows, a lot of it is, as you were saying, pretty direct, which is agent A will say, I need agent B to do this. Now, if there's a model trained on cultural nuance of, let's say, Japan, that may not necessarily work. So with my experience in Japan, any decision that needed to be made was a decision by consensus rather than a decision by kind of priority. So if you had a team of 10 people, all 10 had to agree to the idea before you could move forward, rather than 5 of them being convinced that this is the best thing to do for the outcome. And with a lot of American AI companies as well, building these communication protocols, cultural nuance kind of goes a little bit by the wayside. So it's going to be interesting, and it'll be something that, being based in Singapore, that I'll be helping navigate across our company, who are based in the US, and as well as local partners that we have here as well. But I think the technology is going to have to evolve as well to represent the culture of the regions. A lot of countries are going in and building sovereign AI that is trained on data just from their country. And I think that's an important step as well, because I've tried using some of the models trained in the US for Tamil as a language, for example. And it actually comes back with what would be considered encyclopedic Tamil responses. So the words it uses is not the words the common language. And so when I tried to build an AI agent for a school student of 2 to 3 years old that would interact with Tamil, it was talking in this Tamil that is scholarly, and a student would absolutely not be able to understand it, right? And so that clearly showed a need for training local models based on local nuance and local language that would actually help solve for regional challenges. And so I think that's going to be an evolving space. I think we're pretty early in that timeline, but over the next year, I would see that becoming important as more and more countries get into the race for building AI models.
Yeah, that's very interesting as well. Like, for example, if I know Pakistan, I guess, has their own AI model. I think they released it a few months ago. How would that AI model actually talk with, say, ChatGPT, right? Or
right.
How would that culture? Because I believe this is the future, and that's what Arya is doing it. But you're starting it in the business scale first before you go full-blown sovereign. So my question now would be, in a company, a lot of people, according to the rules, would talk differently. So you're an engineer, you're gonna say overfitting or, you know, some tech terms or jargons that people from the legal side would not understand. And just like what you said, in the world of AI, there's a lot of talk about liabilities and all of that. So how do you navigate the language of that? Because the way lawyers communicate, they use jargons that an engineer like yourself and myself won't understand. And yet they need to work together to go to the same output because we don't work in silos anymore, right? We need to talk to each other. We need to talk with different departments. So my question now is how, aside from the cultural aspect, how can AI actually help us communicate to someone that doesn't understand our jargon or our way of thinking?
Yeah, and that's a really good question. So large language models, I think, definitely help in that space because they prioritize understanding kind of the nuance of the language being used. But it also then comes down to what the model has been trained on. So if the model is trained and fine-tuned on the legal knowledge space, then it has a better understanding of how to speak in kind of a legal terminology, as opposed to a model that's trained more for engineering or coding tasks. And we're seeing that today already with Claude being preferred by engineers for coding assistant, versions of ChatGPT, being better at creative writing for marketing, other versions being better at reasoning and getting to a final logical answer as opposed to kind of talking sweet to you. So we will have personalities, I think, with these models depending on how they are trained, and understanding a nuance of different languages. To my earlier example, I think the language discussion matches then with departmental communications as well, both just from a computer's aspect, different forms of communication. So we will see continued explosion of these like large language models with so many new ones coming out every single day, and older ones getting deprecated. Managing them for your AI workflows will be a challenge, and that's really one of the things that we would be solving as well, which is getting visibility into, okay, is this the right model for me? After let's say 6 months, do I need to swap the model out and use the newer model? Those are functions that enterprises would have to stay on top of, and I expect a new AI operations team, for example, whose job it would be to go and evaluate and say, okay, a new model's come out. This one speaks the legal language better. Do I bring that in to become my legal representative, for example?
Yes, thank you for that, because I believe that most of the feedback with AI is how much can we really trust it, even though it's most accurate, can we often trust it? And there's this belief that if you use AI, you're actually lazy. Like there was a news that was posted few days ago where a student knew that his professor is using AI to do the course, right? To do the course content, whatever. And he was now suing the school to get a full refund or a majority refund, thinking that, hey, if you use AI, then perhaps you're not doing your job right as a professor. So there's this belief that AI, if you use it, you're lazy or you're not good at your critical thinking skills. So if I'm an employee, a lot of more listeners and I myself will be entering the workforce. Of course, we want to look good at our boss. We don't want our boss to think that we're lazy just because we're using AI. And yet, how do we communicate that?
Yeah, that's a very, very interesting question. And specific to the example that you gave, I think the reason the students sued was because they were not allowed to use AI as students, but the professor was still using AI. And so the double standard was what was called out in that court case as well. Specifically around this question of how do you communicate AI is not being lazy. It actually has me thinking about this one course that we did back in university, and that was quite a long time ago. But for this course, the professor used to have fortnightly tests. And what he actually would allow is you can bring in any textbooks, you can bring in any piece of notes, you can bring anything into this test, and you still need to be able to answer it, right? And so it was And what that actually taught me was, learning and skills are not about, uh, having the right answer. It's about being able to navigate complexity to get to an appropriate answer. And that's where I think AI as a tool is going to help people a lot more. And there is going to be a cultural shift that needs to happen. Yes, folks who've done a role in one way will see someone using AI for that role as someone who's taking a shortcut. But it then questions of what was the true outcome that was expected of that role, and if you're able to get to it faster, it doesn't matter what tools you're using, right? So there will be some industries as well as roles that I think will adopt AI and embrace use of AI a lot faster. But this is something similar to mobility, where it is going to be a bottoms up approach. So I remember back in the days when the first iPhone came out, CEOs would want to bring their iPhones, and company IT team would say, "Hey, you're only allowed a BlackBerry," and they go, "No, I want to use my iPhone." And they didn't have a choice. And then slowly that grew from CEOs to daily employees, and it got to a point where businesses now run on iPhones and iPads, right? If you walk into a retail store, they're using an iPad to place orders, find stock. And so it's been an evolution over the last 10, 15 years. But slowly it went from, no, we don't want to allow third-party devices into our systems, to we absolutely need to have these mobile devices in the system. So AI is going to see a similar trend, in fact, maybe a lot faster than what we saw with mobility. And so companies that actually embrace change and are willing to rethink how they do these roles, I think will be much successful, much faster than those that try to resist change.
Yeah, so what you said was very important, where the only constant thing in life is changing. So if you don't adopt, you're gonna die, right? Like the dinosaurs to the age. Those who didn't adopt died. And those
Exactly.
who do, they survive, and that's why you still have crocodiles and mosquitoes.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and cockroaches, right? Like those guys, they don't die.
They won't die.
Yeah, they don't, unfortunately. So I remember looking back, because you said about, oh, during your days in university where you weren't allowed to use Wikipedia. I was also part of that. And few months ago, my high school said, "Oh, for your research paper, you're allowed to use ChatGPT." And I was so annoyed, like, "Oh my god, I had a hard time. I need to go through the library, get those sources." And these kids can just go online, and those sources are seen as credible even though they're out in the internet. So I agree with you. There needs to be a mind shift change.
Mhm.
And it's hard because we didn't grow up like that, or we used to believe there's only one way of learning or one way of thinking. And yet ChatGPT is saying no. It's still up for you to decide on what. So my question now is, a lot of people are using ChatGPT. It's like the new Google, right?
Mhm.
The thing with ChatGPT is, when you look at the sources, it may be biased towards where it's leaning. It can be left, it can be right. I'm not sure on how that works. But
Mhm.
I understand that AI can tend to be biased. So if
Right.
the news that it's getting is more right leaning, with more right leaning answers and vice versa. So my question now is, if Silicon Valley is where most of the AI agents or AI companies are being deployed, that's used globally, does this mean that most of the output we're seeing is something that Silicon Valley decides is its niche?
Potentially, I think that's again a good philosophical question to ask. What I would say is that's always been the case. If you look at movies that folks here in Southeast Asia watched growing up, or TV shows, for example, everyone can recall Friends, everyone can recall a few others. So there is that soft power of ideology that through different forms of either media or systems, that folks can influence the global space. And I don't think it's new that you're having one region have an opinion that's widely adopted. But the counteract to that has always been, you did have local movies and you did have local TV shows, and they portrayed the lives of local Southeast Asian folks, and talked about kind of the challenges there. So in the AI space, similarly, yes, we may have these behemoths coming out, like ChatGPT that's coming out of San Francisco, but I think true adoption will see a lot of the technology scale from different regions with different opinions as well. AI and intelligence as a concept, I think, is going to mirror humans. You
Mhm.
will see some humans who have far right, tendencies, some who have far left tendencies, and there's always going to be a push and pull between that. And if you're training AI on kind of these opinions and data from these specific groups, it's going to be reflected and biased in there as well. So I would say the response here would be to have localized models as well that are trained on the nuance of local culture to fight that bias. And also, you take everything from AI with a grain of salt,
Yeah.
which is trust but verify. Right? So, as with any social media post, you're getting forwards from family on WhatsApp. You can trust it, but you want to verify. So I see AI similarly, where you just have to, and it's getting a lot harder. But I think it is important to not just take responses from an AI model with like blind faith.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I remember we often make fun of the boomers where, oh, they believe everything you see in Facebook or in WhatsApp. But just like what you said, AI is becoming better at mimicking what may be seem true, but not actually. And that's why you still need to do your sources, see, hey, who posted this, who's writing this, what's their biases. So my last question would be, we have all this AI going on where it can make us take out the boring stuff out of work. So my question now is, what does meaningful work look like in a company that automates most of the boring stuff? Because
Yeah,
we often, like, for example, if you go through a job description, they'll often tell you day-to-day boring stuff, and that's what we associate a job to be. And now you're saying with AI we're more productive, where it's most probably likely we're not going to do the boring stuff, but it's hard for people to know how does it actually look like. So for you, what does meaningful work look like now?
yeah. I think that's a very interesting philosophical question, honestly. And looking into the future, I think the meaningful work would be, and it's the difficult one, would be planning for longer term and things like driving the business towards, I'd say, like sustainability efforts. And again, it's my personal opinion, but you know, making AI can take care of the core, I guess, automations that need to happen for a business to happen, and employees can now focus on the meta questions of like, okay, are we driving towards a positive outcome for not just the company but the region or the society or the field that they're working in, and then fine tuning the business operations to lead in that space. One of the good questions or opinions that I heard about recently. So if you look at what made successful companies in the last 20 years, it was companies that were able to maintain a common culture as they scale globally, right? So are they able to have a similar kind of branding, culture, outcomes, even though they are able to work across very large global teams? And the advent of video calling and real time and email all helped to build that common culture across companies and scale globally. Now, with AI agents, what you are given is a guarantee that if you have 100 agents, they're all going to behave in a similar format if you're giving them the same inputs and use the same models. And so you do have this ability for a few companies then to scale globally and maintain a commonality while differentiating from their competitors. And so we may see a lot more companies folding into themselves, and kind of you see these large mega corporations that would just do a few basic roles as a company, while others are focused on things that are not just the basics that we need for life. So TBD. I think this is going to be an evolving space. We'll see how economies change as AI takes over.
Yeah, so just what you said, that we can what does meaningful work look like to a company is something the company gets to decide, right? Most probably the founders, like you're now in a startup, so you're part of creating that culture company of the company. So I would say it starts with the leaders, right? Or the people who first started the company needs to decide, and as an employee, start asking yourself what's the most important to you. If I were to work in a company, do I agree with the company culture? If not, I'll just leave. Right. So what is meaningful to me? That's something we need to start thinking about it. Because with AI, it removes the boring stuff. So
Right.
what you find meaningful in work, what I find meaningful in work is different to what you find meaningful and perhaps your colleagues as well. So thank you, sir, for doing this. So before we go, let's play a little game. It's a 1 minute game. I'll ask you simple questions so that people know more about you and perhaps your colleagues would know more about you as well. So it's simple questions, things that kids would ask. What's your favorite color? What's your favorite food? Something like that. So we're gonna play this for 1 minute. So let me know when you're ready, then we can start the clock.
Yep. All good.
Okay. So what's one thing you always forget?
My to-do list.
So
Which is not good.
how do you start the day without your to-do list then?
Like searching for it. So yeah, I think I've been building a habit of putting everything down in a singular to-do list on paper and keeping to it. Uh, Something that I'm moving away from all the digital trackers back into pen and paper at the moment.
Oh, that's interesting, especially since in the world of AI, you're actually going back to pen and paper. So next question is favorite ice cream flavor.
Ice cream. I would go with Rocky Road from Haagen-Dazs. It's been a while since I've had it though. Yes.
That's also my favorite. So I totally agree, not biased at all. So next is a word you overuse.
Interesting. I don't actually know. Maybe a lot of ums and filler words, but yeah, I can't think of anything specific at the moment.
Okay, so what's the best part of your day?
Sorry,
The best part of your day?
best part of my day. I think it's a combination of just getting stuff done at work as well as making sure I make time for myself for either going to the gym or eating healthy. And the best part of the day would be the end of the day where I can reflect back and say, yes, I've done all these things. It's great.
Yeah, that's everyone's best part of the day is to get out of the office. So what's your most used app?
Most used, I would say Reddit at the moment. I used to use Instagram, I deleted it.
No, I guess Reddit. Reddit has always been superior for me. So yeah. Holiday you'd celebrate all year.
Sorry, what?
A holiday that you would like to celebrate all year.
Ooh, uh, that's it. I don't know. I think what makes holiday special is the fact that they happen once a year. If you make it all through the year, I don't think it becomes special anymore. Uh, yeah, maybe just New Year's and Christmas maybe because that's the time of the year I usually meet my extended family all in one place.
It's interesting. Like if we do holidays, it's not a holiday anymore. It's like a job.
Right.
Job. Like I can't believe going. The preparations for New Year. You're doing it every day.
Mm-hmm.
Or last question. A song title that describes your life.
Oh, that's a hard one. I've been listening to a lot of songs. I, I would default to a Linkin Park song, but I can't think of any at the moment.
Just one song. The first one that pops to your head then. Pops.
I guess breaking the habit where I keep, evolving and changing and giving up on things that are no longer helpful.
Okay. I guess that wasn't a song title, but anyway, that's a very long song title. So thank you, sir, for being here. Before you go, what is it that you're working on at the moment? Is there something you want to promote and share with your audience?
Yeah, it's a area as I mentioned earlier, as a AI platform for enterprise. So I'm part of our Singapore team, helping build the company out here in Southeast Asia. We are a small but growing quickly in the region. And the platform itself is helping solve enterprise AI. So we built this platform that helps solve for security, observability, as well as the continuous change in AI models. And so AI orchestration platform that is able to be flexible while giving enterprises a way to quickly, rapidly prototype and launch these AI workflows. So we are continuing to expand our presence here. We'll be at Health Tech this week, a few Super AI, and a few other events across Singapore, but very soon expanding across Southeast Asia as well. So excited to be one of the early pioneers on the ground here, helping enterprises adopt AI. And yeah, if you're interested, feel free to go to our website at ARD&x, sign up for a demo, and our team will reach out and schedule time.
Thank you. And last question, since most of my listeners are my classmates or friends, we're gonna be start looking for internships. So is that something you're doing it right now, or you're scaling back on the hiring? Like, let us know.
Yeah, we're not looking for internships at the moment, but we are looking for new graduates.
Mhm.
So folks who are graduating with either a computer science background or any sort of experience with AI would be folks that we're interested in. Definitely looking to hire more from Singaporean universities. So we'll definitely be accelerating that over the summer.
Thank you, sir, for being here. And to our audience, thank you once again for listening. See you in our next episode. Goodbye.